Hello, this is Richard Wilson with the Family Office Club, and today we have with us Juan Vargas, who I met through his Commit to Wealth podcast, and who is CEO of the Gen Wealth Capital Group, and he's focused on multifamily investing. He's based out of Texas, and welcome on the line here, Juan.
Hey, Richard, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and thank you so much for having me on.
Yes. Is there anything you want to add to your bio or your daily perspective that maybe I missed or you want to kind of emphasize for the listeners?
Yeah. As you mentioned, I am the host of the Commit to Wealth podcast. It's a show that we focus on real estate investing, specifically in the commercial sector with multifamily and storage units and mobile home park investing. And so those are the main niches that we focus on. As far as my Gen Wealth Capital Group, we've been a part of 6 different deals, mainly in Texas, in the Dallas market, in Memphis, Tennessee, Atlanta, and we're looking to keep expanding, from here. Have a deal under contract right now, also in Dallas, and another one that we're best and final on here within Texas as well.
Sure, great. With the Family Office Club has hosted events in both Dallas and Houston. How do you compare the 2 cities in terms of the number of investors and the investor community health in both locations? What's kind of your gut feeling for which city is a bit stronger and has more, high net worth investors, private investors, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's a good mixture of both. I think Dallas is so diverse as far as their different sectors. It's got finance, it's got tech, it's got pretty much you name it. It's got a little bit of everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. There's a lot of capital that's coming into Dallas, from the East Coast, the West Coast, and also international. On the other side of that, you have Houston, which has been known for oil and gas, traditionally. But it's also much more diverse than what it has been in the past, say maybe the 80s when we had a big crash. And so they're both pretty diverse, towns and cities. And there's a lot of capital coming into it. There's a lot of job growth and population growth coming into both of these cities, which is both, helping in the number of high net worth individuals that are coming in as well. And just because of the cost of living and the opportunities that are here, that are present,
Right. Yeah, I've heard that you can pay someone 3 to 4 times more to live in New York City than you do in Dallas. And I heard that I don't know the statistics for Houston or the state of Texas, but I heard 140,000 net people moved into Dallas last year, and only 40,000 net moved into New York City.
Yeah. Houston and Dallas are actually having, some of the biggest migration inward.
Yeah.
And I think it's California that's having the most exit or negative migration. And so
Sure.
Those people are actually coming into the Houstons, the Dallases, the Austins, and so it's just crazy the amount of growth, and everywhere you look, there's cranes everywhere. It just keeps going. There's no stop into to the state, and
yeah.
Today or in the future, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, in your business especially, it's interesting to look at in 2 ways. I mean, one is just the net demographic change is going to help with infill projects or new multifamily, et cetera, because it's just more, people need to find a place to live. But then also, if you think about who is moving and what their motivations are, a percentage of it is people like me who, I used to live in Oregon, a high-tax state with high regulations, high taxes, and they basically paid me to leave. They're like, we don't want you business people here. Get out of here. You can make some money. Get out, go to Florida, go to Texas. And, we ended up in Florida, not Texas, but I would guess that the net population, people moving there, is going to be slanted towards people who could be potential investors for you, for example, or be in a nicer quality, multifamily, et cetera. So that's interesting. What about deals, the 6 deals you've been part of to date, I mean, how important do you think it is that investors were local to the deal or local to you? In every case, was one of those two things the case, or do you bring in a Chicago investor and even though you're in Houston and the deal's in Dallas or the deal is in another state, you've been able to convert investors from somewhat random places and they don't need to be local to you or the asset?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it really depends on if where they live and where they're based in. If they can find those same kind of opportunities in their backyard, then maybe there wouldn't be that need for them to come to Texas, right? So, for example, we have a lot of investors, from California. Why that is? Well, it's pretty simple. It's just that the cost of living there is pretty crazy. So therefore, a lot of people can't necessarily rent there, right? So the landlord is not really a landlord friendly state either, and so the whole business environment, the whole rental environment is just not as healthy as it is like in a Texas, where we do have the landlord friendly laws, and we do have a state that has no income taxes. So it's just a lot of different mixtures that make it very attractive. So we do have investors, from both sides of the coasts of the nation, and we do have a large mixture of people that already live here in Texas that are investing in our deals as well, and that's because they feel comfortable with Texas. This is their backyard. They know the market, and so they're not going to be investing in other states. And frankly, there's really not a lot of reason to invest outside of Texas because there's already a lot of opportunity here.
Sure.
So yeah, we have a good mixture. I would say 50, somewhere it's close to 50-50, to be honest with you, on the number of investors we have outside versus the number of investors that we have here locally.
Interesting. Okay, great. And has the podcast helped with attracting some potential investors and generating new relationships, or has it more helped with deal flow and just being kind of smart on what's going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a combination of both. I definitely have had many people reach out to me because of the podcast. The podcast has definitely helped to bring awareness into the kind of activity that I'm doing. But also, really the main thing that I try to do with the podcast is to provide value to those out there that are either A, looking to get into their own deals, maybe they're trying to find or buy their own deals or syndicate their own deals, and B, those who are busy individuals that listen to my podcast, that maybe have a retirement account that they have from an old job, that they can put to work, in a specific opportunity. Investment opportunity. So it's definitely a good mixture, and I try to keep it as value oriented as possible, and just keep pumping content out there as much as I can.
Yeah, I've seen some groups out there that just because of their podcast, they've been able to bring in $20, $40, $75 million, and I think that's something that's going to continue. And there'll be people out there who will raise $100 million plus many times over long term because of a killer podcast, or their podcast got popular, or it was in a unique area. So since we both run one, I think it's interesting to look at those case studies and people like yourself making progress. And then also related to the podcast, how many people have you had on the Commit to Wealth podcast over the past year or so?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I do a mixture of having like an additional episode a week, where I can provide some tips or value. But I've had a good number of guests. I would say it's over the 50 range. Great guests on the podcast. Definitely from guys that have had invested in over 150,000 multifamily units, or to the guys that have passively invested in deals, to syndicators, to Robert Kiyosaki, for those of the guys out there listening that may know who he is. So a lot of great guests that definitely have been on the show, and I myself have learned a ton from them. And that's one of the values of having a podcast. I would say is just being able to interview a bunch of different people who are experts in their specific fields and niches, and just learning, different strategies that work in their specific markets geographically, and also their sector. But I really have enjoyed that, and in addition, my audience, which is the main reason why I do it, has definitely learned a lot, and has helped them with their business endeavors as well.
Sure. And from those 50 or so interviews, it's a lot of commercial real estate and real estate expert brains that you have accessed. What are a couple golden threads or common trends for people who have made it, and they're really just, they're getting a deal done every quarter, or they're raising a lot of capital, or they really have a unique strategy? Are there a couple things you've picked out and really kind of told yourself, like, well, I'm going to start doing that, or that's the way of the future, or, it seems like out of those 50, the top 10 that are really killing it are doing X? Is there any insights you've gained from doing all those interviews that you've kind of picked out for yourself to employ?
Yeah. So first and foremost, number one thing is to make sure that people know about you, and that it makes it easier for people to do business with you, right? So if you don't have your name out there, then how are people going to be able to find out about you? So I would say the number one thing for anybody out there listening, that either wants to get into their own deals, or even if you want to invest in deals, people have to know that you exist. And how do you do that? That's through going to different events, conferences, learning from other people, meeting people. I mean, that's one of the first things. That's I guess business 101, right? And then the other thing is in the actual deals that you're doing and you're being a part of, to make sure that they're conservative. And that's one thing that we have definitely been doing, is make sure that our underwriting is conservative for our investors. And so we underpromise, overdeliver. It's kind of what we try to do. But at the same time, you can't be overly conservative either. On the same note, because then you're not going to get anything. So going back to your original question of how do the people that keep acquiring properties or bringing up different investment opportunities, well, they're being conservative, but at the same time they're being out there, they're being active, they're submitting offers, and you just got to keep pushing. So those are some of the things that I've seen from all the interviews. Is they are definitely active, and they take action. Whenever there's a good opportunity in front of them, they move on it. They don't sit there and think about it too much.
Yeah, for sure. You're taking lots of actions, or just taking a lot of action on one project. When it's the number one most important thing, it's something I've seen commonly upon those that are most successful as well in private equity or real estate. So what about when it comes to your multifamily strategy and the angle that you take? Because there's so many apartment buildings out there you could be investing in, and there's so many independent sponsors and investment funds focusing on that space. How do you differentiate yourself, and what's the strategy that you're high conviction on that seems to be working?
Yeah. So we focus in Texas. I know I did mention, outside of Texas, like Atlanta, but our main focus is in Texas. And what we look for is workforce housing, value add opportunities. So we look for the primary markets within Texas, because we try to look at the exit strategy as well. And so any opportunity that we get into, that's one of the things, the most important things is, what is going to happen here in 5 to 7 years when we go to exit. Is this, first of all, a market where people want to be in, where a new buyer will want to be a part of? And then second of all, is this submarket within this major market, and this property type, something that's going to be attractive, upon exit. So those are some of the things that we look at for our investment strategy. But it is workforce housing with some type of value add opportunity. Because the majority of the tenant base out there that is renters that live in multifamily. I'm not speaking single family, but I'm just speaking of the multifamily renter nation out there. Are Class B, which is the asset class that we focus on, which is more the 80s maybe 70s, 80s, 90s product. So the majority of the tenant base out there are Class B tenants, workforce housing. So that's what we cater to, and that's what we focus on.
Sure. Okay. And what's the number one lesson that you've learned so far as it relates to multifamily investing from your own work?
Yeah, that is to I said it earlier, to make sure that we're conservative, because we just don't know what's going to happen, especially like in these days. Maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you can buy a good opportunity or be a part of a good opportunity, but the wave kind of pushes you up, right? The tide pushes you up because we were towards the bottom of the market, and so there was just nowhere to go but up. So you can be a mediocre, I guess, operator and still make out well. So that's one thing I would say for anybody out there listening is make sure that people have some experience, long-term experience, not just here in the last year or two. And so that's what we try to do is just be conservative and expect some of the worst here to come. And if your numbers work out at those worst case scenarios, and it's a good market, and there's a lot of good indicators that are in your favor for that market, job growth, population growth, rent growth, then you move forward with it. So I would say number one thing is to be conservative with your underwriting and your opportunities.
Sure. And then my last question, and I'll give you a chance to add anything that you would like to get across, is for an investor listening to this, maybe they've trusted a couple independent sponsors with their money, maybe they're doing and conducting due diligence on a couple right now. What advice do you have on really checking one out, making sure that they're the right one, making sure that they're not a fraud, or they're not just kind of doing this part-time, they're not really going to do a great job for you? I mean, how would you advise investors to kind of de-risk the process of selecting a few independent sponsors to work with?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, really, you have to look at the track record. Look at what they've done in the past. Now, I would say on the same note that past performances don't necessarily indicate future performances, and a lot of that could be because of the market. Again, as I mentioned earlier, but you really do have to look at their past performances, their track record. Maybe talk to other investors who have invested with that specific sponsor. Kind of get to know them and ask them why they decided to go with them, how their process went, and knowing also getting to know the actual sponsors and making sure that they have the highest of integrity, making sure that they communicate properly. Those are some really key details that people need to know about. Making sure that the communication is one of the biggest things as well. As I mentioned, if they're not communicating properly with you, they're not on time, they're not returning your phone calls, your emails, then those are already signs that you might have to pass, or those are some early indicators that maybe the way the process might work out throughout the life of the investment.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I think like the way that people act and perform in little ways can be reflective of how they think and might treat you long term. And if it's bad up front before you put money down, then it might be even worse potentially down the road. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in that you didn't have a chance to get to talk about, or I didn't ask you about that you wish I did?
No. I mean, I think we hear on a lot of different pieces, but I think if people want to find out more about what we do, they can go to genwealthcapital.com. They want to listen to the podcast. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, pretty much all the platforms out there. And that is called Commit to Wealth. And you can check out the website as well, committowealth.com. But yeah, I do appreciate your time, Richard, and it was a pleasure to be on. I want to thank you for that, and hope everybody that was listening was able to get a couple of different pieces of good tips and advice.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the Family Office Podcast, and I hope to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Appreciate it.
Take care, Juan.
All right, thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.